Okay, hi guys and gals. I'm Dale Henrichs. I work at VMware, and what was it? It was 12 years at Gemstone. Although that's 12 years of being paid by Gemstone. I actually started like in '97 or something like that. So, I was part of the Brocat fiasco. Anyway, so today I'm going to talk about tODE, a stepping stone to tODE. All right. Now, are any of you out there familiar with tODE, or have heard of tODE, or maybe seen tODE? Okay, a few of you. All right. I'll hold off on the rant for tODE because that comes up on the first slide. But what I want to tell you about tODE. All right. Now, tODE is my dream. I'll tell you about the dream in a little bit. But tODE is my dream. And about a month ago, I was sitting down thinking about what am I going to do for small talks this year. I didn't want to do another Git talk. I talked about Git much this year, and I spent much of the year working on Git, all right? And I wanted to get back to tODE. But I had a month, and I thought, oh, okay, all right, I'll just do something simple, all right? Just a simple little project. I'll test out a few ideas that I have that will be stepping stones towards the tODE dream, okay? And then, crazy stuff happened, all right? Things went faster than I thought. I've had experience doing this stuff before. I've been working, I was doing development tools in '95, '94, somewhere like that for Smalltalk. So things came together, and I've gotten a lot more than I thought. In fact, I've got a lot more than when I signed up for the talk. So I have a lot more to talk about than 30 minutes. So my danger was going over on the first slide. So anyway, with that, I will go on and get into my rant on tODE, because that's the biggest thing. All right, so tODE, T-O-D-E, the object development environment, okay? That's the vision, that's the dream, okay? So what's wrong with the Smalltalk development environments today, all right? Now, are you guys going to really tell me that you love the class browser? That you love how you click, 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 menu, 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 click, click, click? Is that what you're going to tell me? Because all right, so so that's what I'm not, so tODE is the antithesis of that, all right? Now, doing the browsing is not bad, but the way, all right? And, 1985, before you guys were all born, the class browser looked exactly the same as it does today, virtually the same. So anyway, and the part of this is the browsers are those bad objects that Andres was talking about in the previous talk. They're these big monster things that do a whole ton of stuff and get their tendrils into the entire development, the entire system, okay? So tODE is an approach to bring developers close to the living objects that they love and work with, all right? You got to have tightly coupled tools, and I call the debugger, the inspector, and the class browser decoupled tools. You want to have interoperability between those tools. You want to be able to customize those tools and add your own custom tools. But you don't see a lot of custom tools added these days, all right? Seaside tried to add a custom tool for starting the web server, but it required all of Omni browser to load. So, okay, like I told you this is my rant. I was just going to put a big rant up there in the first place. And also lower the barriers to creating custom project-specific tools. I mean, Smalltalk is a tools language. We're small talkers, and yet we sit down and we click around on these menu items, and nobody builds the complex GUIs that you might need, or even the simple GUIs that you might need for your project, for what you're working on. So tODE is, get rid of this, fix it, all right? Now, the original tODE started as a web browser, and that was in a web browser, implemented in a web browser. And there's some advantages there because it forces you to get away from the core system. You can't cheat, okay, and get your tendrils into, oh, okay, I'll just send, I'll get the method dictionary and I'll scan through, that's stuff that's really part of the problem in these browsers. So anyway, tODE is an approach, and I really didn't think I was going to get anywhere near tODE when I started tOPEZ, okay? And so this is what tOPEZ has become, all right? It's a complete set of tools for remote Gemstone S environment development. So the notion here is Gemstone S doesn't have a GUI. So how do we do development? We use a program called tOPAZ, and it's a command line program, all right? And and other than that, we use client Smalltalks, and we piggyback on their development environments. And so what tOPEZ turned into is a full development environment without piggybacking on existing development environments. And it is a remote development environment. So it's running in Faro, but it's doing development against a Gemstone instance. So I got class browser, inspector, debugger, Monticello browser, and a twist on the traditional tools, and we'll get into that. Oh, so what is tOPez now, all right? Well, the tOPez GUI tools came about later. Well, so tOPez is a shell, all right? Smalltalkers don't have shells. The entire programming development universe sits down and goes, CD to my working directory, make. They type commands, they write shell scripts. Do we write Smalltalk scripts? We write little things in workspaces, okay? That's as close as we get. So, a shell script for Smalltalk. You write code, you write your shell script in Smalltalk. There's a tOPez object structure. I've been fretting over what I should call this. It's, use CD, ls, make dir, rm, to put things and take things out of an object structure, not file system. And again, this is a script running inside a Smalltalk image. This isn't sitting down, running, using bash and hooking up and, none of that funky business. This is, everything's implemented in Smalltalk. So it's a Smalltalk shell. We have object structure so we can navigate around in, this is Smalltalk, arbitrary structures, all right? You think about the Unix file system and the rich, thousands of directories in it. Okay, we map objects underneath that. And then some GUI tools, all right? Because there are good things about the GUI tools. They're not, you don't throw them all out, you just do them differently. So, I'm going to give you a demo. I think the best way is, I'm not going to talk about it, I'm going to show you, all right? And hopefully I'll finish that and we'll be able to talk about the summary. But, all right, so one of the odd things is I didn't use any menus, okay? So, I realized that you're not going to really be able to tell what I'm doing because I'm just using keyboard stuff, all right? And the mouse, I'm not going to move, I'll move a couple windows around, but I'm going to use the mouse and the keyboard. That's it. Now, there's an interesting thing. When you sit down and just use the mouse and the keyboard, it cuts down on how creative you can be or how lazy you can be and throw all the work on a menu, all right? You can't do that. So I had to come up with some ideas, and I won't show them all because I don't have time. But anyway, and this is not your father's class browser. I tried to get a strikeout font there, all right, in what is this, Keynote? And I couldn't because this isn't your class browser. Now, I mean, it is your father's browser and it's not yours. No, never mind. So anyway, I will go and start the demo here. So we'll see how it goes. All right. Escape. I have to start with the workspace here. I'm sorry, I apologize. Are you able to hear me here when I'm sitting like this? Okay. All right, so I'm going to open my GS evaluator, okay? And it kind of looks like a shell script, all right? And this is not, this is a 30-day-old, 30-day-old project. So there's wet paint everywhere. There's holes in the floor there. Now, if I got my script right, I won't fall into any of them, but we'll see. But things like command completion, I wish I had it. So anyway, let me get started here. So I got my evaluator, and I'm going to type a command in. All right, edit class TZ. All right, edit a class beginning with the letters TZ, and I get this single window over here to the left. All right, and that's the list of classes in the image that begin with TZ, and I can click on an element and boop, all right. So what do you see here? Okay. Class hierarchy. I always want to see the hierarchy. I don't always want to see it, but when I want to see it, I want to see it. I don't want to have to look for it and find it with menu items and opening new windows. So this is always there for me, all right? When I click on a class, the definition updates, all right? So I can see the class definition without going to, again, navigate to the window to find the class definition. And the same thing is true with the instance and class methods, okay? So they're visible all the time. I don't have to go find them. I don't have to think about where they are. I don't have to resize my window because I collapsed things down so I couldn't see it. I'm sitting here looking at everything, and I got the code in the middle, all right? So now I can see that. And one of the nice things about having, and each of these is a separate window, you've probably noticed that. One of the nice things is I can double click on this, and I get the full screen real estate to write my 3-line method, okay? But, you can also take it and go, oops, I gotta use the menu. Maybe this is why, I'm having trouble. There we go, okay. But you can move this guy around, all right, and I'm going to use a magic command, Control-Shift-C, because everybody says, I want to be able to see methods side by side and do editing side by side. Okay, here we go, you know, editing methods side by side. And I didn't copy and clone the whole web browser. I didn't do that, or the method browser, the class browser. If I go over here and click on a different method, now this happens to be the primary code guy. The one I spawned is sitting over there keeping track of where he was and what was going on. I can come down here, click on a different class, source element now, I'm looking at source element, I'm looking at source colon, and I can come back over to this guy and hit another magic key, Control-Shift-B, all right? And it brings the development environment back to that window, and I can now see the, you know, the superclasses for the class of this window. I can see the class definition. I can see the methods and class methods. So now in Pharo, you'd have had about, I don't know, 4 or 5 windows open by now that you would have to be rummaging through or closing when you're done with them. And I've got one, the one that I wanted, the one that I said I want to keep that one, all right? Oops. I put that over there because I thought I would get away from having that guy jump up in my face. So I'm going to close this guy because then when he gets reopened, he'll come up in the right size for me. Let's see if I got what else I've missed here. Oh, you know, the standard, we need the standard things, all right? So you click on this and you say, who are the implementers, all right? So Control M. I've got the implementers listed down here. When I click on one of those, I get updated in my class, code pane. But the rest of the system stays the same, unless I want it to change. You know, the magic Control-Shift-B, and it brings in the whole environment so I can see it. Now, obvious things are I'd like to have a back button. You know, I've got these little books that I keep, and I keep my notes and stuff in. I got them stacked with things I'd like to do. But this is 30 days, you know. I mean, I won't worry about that one right now. So, but, you know, I got this one. I can say sender's a message pattern, all right? I get that, all right? You can go into the message pattern and say, let's do references, Control-Shift-N. And now I get all the, you know, all of the references to that. And I can see, okay, bugs. All right, sorry. But, you know, I should have gotten references there, but I didn't. But you get the idea. But class, let's look at what's going on in class, all right? Control-Shift-B. And by the way, I'm talking to Gemstone here, all right? This is not, you know, notice object is the root of the class hierarchy, not proto-object. This is all Gemstone code, all right? So one of the things I might want to actually look at is edit the RC classes. Oops. Edit class. Up arrow RC, I think that should work. Yeah. So here's all the reduced conflict classes. Okay. You know. So I just want to show you. You know, because the thing is moving kind of fast there. All right. And that was one of the problems with the previous Gemstone GUIs for the free version was performance over the WAN. This is acceptable on LAN, and it can get better. And you know, so. But anyway, Control-Shift-C, class. Okay, next up on the list, let's do some inspectors, all right? So if you're familiar with tOPaz, all right, and if you're familiar with tOPaz, you go tOPaz, and then, you know, is he saying tOPaz or tOPaz? I actually started out saying, I'm just going to implement tOPaz in Pharo, and that'll be good enough for the talk, all right? Obviously, it got beyond me. So I want to do an inspect, so I'll just say inspect, I'll hit return. So what happens here is you got the here documents in the shell, you know, and so this is an interactive here document where basically I say inspect, I can type in stuff, 3 + 4. When I hit the % key, that closes it and says inspect that guy. So I got an inspector on 7, all right? Surprise, surprise. Control-Shift-B. Okay, I'm looking at small integer. I'm looking at all the methods for small integer, okay? So this to me, is so much nicer environment for collapsing things. When I started programming in Smalltalk, okay, before that I was compiling Fortran. I would go outside, and when I finished my 5 minutes of coding and compiled the system, I went outside and had a cigarette. Now, that's called you're losing track of your train of thought. When I got to Smalltalk, I was able to program at the speed of thought. I find myself these days, and maybe because it's getting old, you know, I'm falling behind. I can't keep up with the GUI, all right? In other words, I'm starting to spend more time monkeying with things than getting work done. So that's what this keyboard, boom, 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 that's to me is letting me stay away from how do I. It's just what do I, and where is it? Well, You know, it's where I find it for everybody. It's in the exact same spot. So anyway, that's more ranting. I'm sorry about. Okay, the next thing to go. Oh yes, I inspected 7. All right. How do I evaluate? You know, when do I write expect? Okay, so we'll do this again where I say inspect, and it turns out that self, I arrange for self to be the previous, you know, basically the current inspector value. So I can say self times 3%, and now I'm looking at 21. So you haven't lost too much of the functionality, and that's kind of been the, you know, to me this is the lucky thing that came about in doing Topaz is, okay, this is odd, and I know some of you might be just, you know, going, I can't, you know, but that's what people do when they see the class browser for the first time, okay? So, you know, there's odd things, but to me this is like, all right, this is starting to get some nice synergy here. I can look at stuff, I've got things to navigate, and I've got this little window when I want to go and do a context switch, all right? And that allows you to do context switches. And by the way, multi-pane, I said no multi-pane windows and no menus, all right? To make it easy for myself, all right? It's 30 days. But also, I'm not sure when I'm going to add them in, because I'm not sure how I want it to all hang together. But anyway, so we have the inspector. Let's inspect something more interesting. So I do an ls here. I've got this thing called array. Let me cat array. These aren't files. These are objects, okay? This is just, you know, directory structure. Yeah, dictionaries. So let's inspect that guy, all right? Inspect the result of evaluating that expression. So I say inspect array, and now my inspector over here has, you know, Mr. Array. I can click on this thing and start navigating down through the guy. Control-Shift-B, okay, go to array. You know, so I've got the, you know, that nice, you know, ability to really navigate without a lot of, you know, resizing windows. A tree view might be better here for, you know, something like the Explorer. There's some nice things about the Explorer. And the synergy with the shell interface might make that better later. Okay, so inspector, let's do a debugger now, all right? Let's do an ls, and there's a thing called boom. Okay, let me cat boom. Okay, I got a halt in here, all right? So, you know, we should get an inspector or a debugger up here when I run this guy. And okay, my halt occurred. So I say edit stack, all right? This is one of the earliest things I did, because that was the first thing I wanted to do, was does the debugger work? So it doesn't look quite as nice as everything else, but it does what it's supposed to do. So, all right, so I got this window over here with the stack trace, all right? And guess what? When I click on this, the code pane updates with the method from the inspector, all right? And I've got, this is actually, I had to make the fonts real big, so the titles disappeared on here, but this is the receiver, and then this is the context, all right? So self is halt, and there's the receiver's the halt class, okay? So I can poke around in this guy. Again, I'll go here to small integer, Control-Shift-B. This is one of the slow things. I'm getting a lot of hierarchy from object here. So, you know, I now can see the protocol in object, all right? And I can now work with, either write the code in here to fix things or understand, you know, what went wrong, debug things. I can take this and, you know, clone it. But I've also got the ability to step, so I'll go up here. Let's see, it's Command-T to step, all right? So I'm stepping across, and Command-J finishes the thing. And so, close your eyes. These things didn't close with the debugger. But I've got the inspectors left around. Let's clean those guys up. So I've got a pretty functional debugger. And by the way, I'm debugging a process that's running in Gemstone. And really, one of the things is Gemstone was really designed to be debugged remotely, all right? So in fact, trying to debug it from the own process is a very difficult thing. To have your debugging process running inside the gem that you're debugging is not easy. But doing it remotely was cake, which is why I went this direction, because that was the problem I had with tODE a long time ago. So, all right, I'm going to close the windows here, all right, and we're going to start a different phase, because I talked about scripting, okay? So there's the class browser, inspector, and debugger, and I think so that's there, the functionality's there. But let's look at some other pieces, because where's the system menu for Gemstone? How do I sit down and say, you know, save? How do I say blah, blah? Well, that's all done inside this little scripting, the evaluation window, and there's a bunch of commands. So let me start by navigating around. I cd to slash, and let's do an ls, and I've got some directories, home, projects, and topaz, all right? Well, topaz seems to be a good bet to go in there. And there's bin, so let's go into bin, and let's ls, okay? So here's a list of all the commands that you can execute in this script, okay? I've been using cd a lot. Let's cat cd. Oops. Let me see if I can type. Oh, let me just make this big. And what you see is CD is implemented as a block. And it takes some arguments. The tokens is one of the arguments. If there are no tokens, the token size is CD. I set the current node to home, all right? If not, then I do a lookup of tokens at 2, which is the second token, which is the path, and I set the current node to that. And ls, oh, well, let's just look. What does the ls do? It says, take the current node and list the contents. And if you specify a path, go do that. So we've got this, but these commands are just written here. I can edit them, all right? I can say edit CD, and I get this nice little code browser down here. And let's make this guy small. Let's make this guy big. And self-halt. Okay? Run him back. And I come down here, and I have to be careful if I do the command in the wrong spot. I mean, we start all over. But we don't have that much state going on here. Okay, CD dot. Okay, now I get a debugger up. Now you're looking at the Pharo debugger. All right, because this environment is running in 2 places. All right, I've got stuff state on the client, and I've got stuff over in Gemstone. When I'm running the blocks and managing the object structure is living in the client right now. Okay, I may change that. This was real convenient. In fact, the object structure and the shell script editing and things like that happened a week and a half ago. That it was like a Friday morning. I was driving into work and went, ooh, maybe. And so a lot of this stuff has come together. Like I say, the paint's not dry. But anyway, so I've got so I can actually go in here and edit and create scripts, all right, blocks that execute commands. So if I want to create a new one, all right, let me go in here and get rid of the halt out of CD. If I want to create a new command, I can just sit here and say touch, hola, edit, hola. Put in here a string, hola, save it. And run it. Okay, so put whatever you want there. All right. In fact, I'll show you the next piece here, which is because I gave you a class browser and I gave you a debugger and I gave you an inspector. But how do you do like Monticello browser? Okay, what does that guy look like? Okay, and that was. I didn't want to build another GUI for that, because he doesn't have to be a GUI. So, CD to / ls projects. Let's CD into projects and see what we find. Oops, CD projects. ls. Okay, so these are the projects that are loaded on the Gemstone side. FileTree, Glass, Gopher, GSMIS. Here's Topez down here, all right? So let's CD into Topez. And ls, and I've got classes, groups, packages, projects, and tests. Let's ls packages. Okay, 30 days, you don't get packages. But you do get classes, so let's CD into classes. Oop. CD classes. Okay, ls. All right. So here are all the classes that are in the Topez project. And if I say edit dot, okay, I get this nice little window over here with the list of all the classes. The guys in italics are the ones that are just the extension methods, and I've got the guys in bold are the ones that the classes exist in the package itself, and I'm off to the races. Okay, so I can navigate and use the editor, the browser, to get things from that particular project. There's another thing that I can do. Let me go to let's see. Yes. Okay. So I go back to the Topez bin. All right. /Topez /bin, okay, and ls. I've got a couple commands here, diff, save, and reload. Which one did I want to do first? I want to do diff first. So let's edit diff, okay? And what I've got is a block, and that block does a lookup of /projects, first argument after diff. Then this bin output, okay, never mind. Just ignore that for a moment. Here I've got the real work here is being done inside this guy, all right? and I'll do implementers of that. And tZ engine implements that, so let's go click on this guy, double click. So here's the method that goes and does a diff of the modified packages in this project. And what I do is I say I get modified packages, and that's another method that I go look for. But my modification's not empty. I create a write stream, a diffy text writer, and just do the diff. Now, this is not a lot of stuff, all right? Did any of you know how easy it was to get a diff when you're looking at Monticello browser? Oh, have you bothered to look at Monticello? Of course, there's too much there. There's too much to look at. This is like the menu items are broken out in a separate spot, and they're right there, and they don't have a lot of context. All right. Now that might be bad too, but that's a different discussion. But the thing is this is simple. You can write this in a few minutes because you sit down and go, where's the class? Control B on the selected diffy writer. All right, text writer. I can go grab that guy. Easily poke around. I can build my script, while I'm reading the code, which is how you do this stuff anyway. But all of a sudden, Smalltalk APIs start, besides your own, start becoming something you can use. There are APIs out there. I did lint. I've got a version of this that runs in Pharo. All right, this one's running against Gemstone. I got one, but it runs locally, so it's native. I took and wrote just a simple lint command that does small lint for my project. All right, I think I spent more time going through the GUI trying to figure out the 5 lines of code I needed to implement the lint that I could put in my little do it that would then work. So, I think there's this entire, stuff that we're just, we tie one hand behind our back when we're doing this. So, I shouldn't be ranting too much here. So, let me get back down to diff. Okay, so I can edit the diff, and let's see, I'm going to go. Well, I guess I can just check my notes here. Okay, so I'm going to show you some of the other commands, and just to show you that my save command goes off, and this accumulate text do. This is how I collect text up to %. Yes, 5 minutes. Okay, perfect. All right. So this is how I collect text, so I can get the commit conflict, the commit comment from the do it stream, and I say modified packages here. All right, and this is another method I can go look at, and it's another 20 lines of code or something like that. And so I can save all the modified packages just by saying save tOPEZ and then type in a command. There's also a reload, and the reload is what I really want you to see here, because for me, this is the standard redirection from Smalltalk. Okay, I've got that one. Let me go get the other one. The next one down the chain. Metacello image, Metacello load. All right, let me look over here. I've got a workspace that was one of the first things I put into this. I'm looking for a workspace, aren't I? I can't go CD to the thing I want. It's down here somewhere. I know where it is. I can find it. I guess there might be a shortcut. My reload script. This guy has been around. I've had this since the beginning, and I always pop it up, and I always keep it, and I say, just come in here and say do it whenever we want the guy reloaded. But that's all it is. I've got this little workspace. I can add a command and just type reload. Boom. Okay, next. And you're in the context of where you wanted to be in the first place in your evaluator. So extending browsers. I do want to hop into that real fast. Let's see. So I'm going to cd to /topez and show you that we have events and scripts. All right. Well, ignore the scripts. Cd to events and look at the clicks. And we'll edit the tZ class element. Okay, and look at this guy. So what's going on here is class element. Instead of browsers being the object of the central point of the tool, what I have is lists of elements. The code browser is on an element. Okay? And what that means is I've got classes of elements. And when you click on a tZ class element, then this is what's going to happen. If you click on a tZ message element, something else happens. And so the events are, these are, it's exposed. I've torn the, the wallboard down. I've exposed the wiring of the tools to you who are, your workshop. You don't put up nice walls in the workshop. You leave everything exposed so you can get at it and work at it and change it how you want it. That's what I'm trying to do here, is expose these junction points. Like, what do I want to have happen when I click on something? What do I want to have happen when, and so I said, I want to see the class definition, I want to see the hierarchy, and I want to see the class selectors and instance selectors. And so it's as simple as saying, oh, I want to change this, all right? And I can put a self-halt in here and, change this code, and now you've changed the behavior of your system. Because the behavior of the system isn't embedded in this giant model that you have to go in and figure and get a PhD in before you can touch it. It's just exposed, all right, and simple, okay? So so that finishes my demo portion, and I'll go back and I just got a few more slides to show you. So, oh, not bad, okay. Let's see, how do I do this? Play slideshow. Okay, all right. So that was not your browser, was it? But it was really dang close. The good things, got kept. All right, so the tOPez GUI tools. All right, what do I think is good about it? All right, the thing the important principle. All right, there's a tight integration. All right, when I'm in the inspector, I can look at stuff. I can get to the browser. Okay, I don't have to browse browse hierarchy, or navigate through menus to find out what I'm doing, all right? It's relatively simple to modify and extend. It's based on blocks. The tOPez directory structure. I've been struggling with the name for this, but it's a simple paradigm. I mean, the rest of the universe uses this paradigm for managing their projects and working on things. It's directory structure, all right? And it doesn't require, you can add commands without requiring someone to put a GUI out there. All of a sudden you can have Smalltalk things that are triggered by a simple script that you wrote. You can provide 5, 6, 10, 15 scripts, not, because I got to put a menu item there that takes you to the browser, that takes you to the menu items, that takes you to the things that I want to do. You can do that, a shortcut, and it makes it much easier for you to, basically build things up for yourself. And then finally the shell scripts, all right? It's a lightweight custom tool creation. You don't need a giant window to do a lot of the stuff that we use Windows for. And a better way to manage workspace expressions, and it's blocks. Did I mention blocks? So anyway, that's it. Questions? I would suggest if you want to talk about this, the tODE mailing list is the place to go, all right? And then the code that you're looking at here is in the tOPez repository up on GitHub. And there's instructions up there in the README. So I guess it's time for questions, if there are any.
Question in two parts. Part one, we have a shortcut to bring up the scripting panel, the pure shortcut. And the second one, I'm not sure how to phrase it exactly. In a way, if you had such a shortcut, it would remind me of typing escape colon UEI.
Yeah.
But please don't take it.
Oh, no.
Because I think I asked it from the point of view of putting value in having a place where you can record and see or make explicit what commands you're using for navigation.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't have a shortcut there, but this is very, a lot of this stuff came up in the last 2 weeks, all right? The bulk of, I think the neat stuff, the script and the structure, I think that stuff deserves, more focus, in general, all right? The GUIs, if you like the class browser, then use it, all right? But I've been doing this for several years, all right? And I did a thing called Stash, which is a Smalltalk shell, written in Smalltalk, and I put mount for different systems. I went down this path that was the wrong path to start. But the point is I've been thinking about this kind of problem, for quite a while, and I wanted to have, an Emacs style thing for Smalltalk, where you have buffers, that you put arbitrary things in the buffer, and you manage the buffers, and they're named, and you can navigate amongst your buffers, and you can come up with little little scripting windows and type things in and do commands, and there's a lot you can do that way. you know, I would say the thing with tODE that I ran into in my earlier experiments with it was I didn't know what to do with the lists. You know, in a web browser, I just really didn't know how I'm going to get, because you have, you know, there's like 8 different dimensions that you want to worry about when you're doing this. You know, what are the hierarchy, the list of methods. So, you know, to me, in Pharo, I went, oh, multiple windows. Oh, that's easy to do. Layout. Oh, that's easy to do. I don't have to figure out how to do it in Java, in JavaScript. So, anyway, I don't know if that answered all of your questions or not, but I was thinking of Emacs, you know, roughly, loosely inspired. So, any other questions? Yes, sir? Right. Right. So, yeah. So there's a couple little, you know. So you've poked into one of the spots here. Okay. What I'm doing is I'm creating the blocks on the client, and there are blocks for commands that is code on the server, and I want the server code to say, here are the commands. Install, you know, my tOPez stuff in /tOPez. All right. But I want that on the server side, not on the client side. So, you know, so the thing is versioning I haven't addressed, and my plan is that what I want backing these things is a class eventually, a method in a class that then you can save, all right, and then you can version and track along. But I haven't solved that. I think it's a solvable problem though, because it's just a matter of the blocks to me are the important thing because that's what you can change. And you know, it forces you to do a lookup rather than use the class message sends, and so it forces you to break the link to say, oh, just all commands for tOPez are subclassed off of blah. Well, you know, now all of a sudden, you know, you've tied yourself into a big structure, and you know, and a framework starts emerging out of nowhere when the block is just fine. So I want pragmas to keep that tight or the loose thing there. But yeah, that's the one thing. I mean, you know. It's a problem that I don't have a direct answer for or an implementation for, but I've got some ideas that I think how to do it. So any other questions? Oh, okay. All right. Well, thanks a lot.